We are gathered here today to remember and celebrate the lives of two very different souls. One, a steadfast companion to every auntie, Girl Scout troop, and weekend warrior crafter. She gave without complaint and asked only for a coupon in return. The other, well, it returned to us unexpectedly, but not as we remembered it, and in some ways perhaps we wish it hadn't. The vibes were felt, and they decided to ascend back once they came. In fact, it left us a post-it note. Y'all remember that episode? Screw you, Burger. Okay, not a post-it note. It was a lovely termination letter on custom branded letterhead, posted to Instagram because nothing says final season quite like an aesthetically framed farewell. Today we honor Joann Fabrics, taken from us not by natural causes, but by more modern means. And just like that, the television series, taken perhaps by its own pen. Though they come from different worlds, one with aisles of fleece, the other with closets of designer shoes, both were victims of forces beyond their control. Joann was bought, burdened, and blood dry. And just like that was simply rebooted. And so, before we close the casket, let's remember where it came from. A glittering Manhattan fairy tale called Sex in the City, once the toast of HBO. And let's talk about how that promise was unraveled into, well, and just like that. And just like that, the reboot of Sex in the City, a show that once defined a generation of cosmopolitan ambition, complicated friendships, and shoes that cost more than rent. On paper, the reboot had potential. The original audience had aged, and so had the characters. It could have been a smart exploration of midlife love, loss, relevance, and reinvention, all filtered through the lens of women who once believed they could have it all. But somewhere between the boardroom and the writer's room, that premise got misplaced. What we got instead felt like fan fiction with a budget, storylines that mistook mentioning topical issues for actually engaging with them, and character arcs that felt like strangers wearing old friends' clothes. Speaking of clothes, Carrie and that hat. A hat that looked less like fashion and more like strawberry shortcake wandered into an Anthropologie sale. And just like that, didn't just miss the mark. It sold us nostalgia, but delivered an uncanny valley version of the thing we loved. Proof that not every what if needs to be manifested into a reboot. In the early part of 2025, I was in Illinois with my BFF of almost 30 years. We were prepping for her 1-year-old's birthday party. Of the many stops, one was Party City, which is sadly to say no longer with us, Hobby Lobby, and Joann Fabrics. Funny enough, we walked into the Joann, and my spidey senses knew something was off. The store was in disarray. Things were scattered everywhere, disorganized. It reminded me of the panty salad bin at Victoria's Secret during their big semi-annual sale, what have you. Joann served as my backup. Not to sound pretentious, but in design school, it was encouraged that we source from more fashion industry-driven vendors. Living near Los Angeles meant going to the fabric district, which I frequented often.
Who wants to come with me to Mood? Great!
But every now and then, when I was in a pinch, I only had enough time to drive to my local Joann's for notions, fabric shares, even fabric or yarn. I would later discover through the news that Joann was no longer. What I didn't anticipate was that we would see an opportunity to take the fixtures home and use them personally. It's $40 per section. She gave us a 3-column section for $80 just because, you know, she don't have to deal with it. Oh, because we take some with us. She said she could take as many. I mean, it's modular, so it's helpful. Just put. It's hard to say how many I want. Yeah, 9 to 12.
We'll take 12 of those.
Okay.
So we got 4 right here. We got 2 right here. That's how many more? 3. 2. Yeah, this one right here.
Yeah. So we have to come back here.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Put that one over. Yeah. Those are put on top.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have 6 total. That's what it's been looking like and the whole time.
What was that? Isn't that turning all the Joanns into prisons or whatever?
What?
It was like an SNL sketch?
So what happened? You're probably asking.
In 2011, Joann Stores Incorporated underwent a $1.6 billion leveraged buyout executed by Leonard Green and Partners, utilizing a capital structure heavily weighted toward asset-backed debt financing, thereby escalating leverage ratios to a level that materially constrained discretionary capital expenditure allocations. This transaction framework, emblematic of late-cycle retail LBO norms, was predicated on driving operational efficiencies through SKU rationalization, vendor portfolio optimization, inventory velocity enhancements, workforce realignment, and a holistic recalibration of the end-to-end merchandising ecosystem. The underlying value creation thesis incorporated cross-functional synergy mapping, omni-channel touchpoint expansion, and KPI-driven process optimization, with a view toward maximizing EBITDA uplift ahead of a structured exit event. While the COVID-19 pandemic generated a transitory uplift in top-line revenues as consumer crafting behaviors temporarily intensified, the absence of sustained reinvestment in omni-channel integration, agile supply chain resilience, experiential retail innovation, and digital-first consumer acquisition funnels led to progressive market share attrition in the face of secular headwinds impacting specialty retail. Ultimately, compounded liquidity constraints, diminishing same-store sales metrics, negative year-over-year comp trends, and attenuated brand equity culminated in successive Chapter 11 proceedings and the ultimate strategic determination to execute a comprehensive wind-down of approximately 800 domestic retail units, resulting in the separation of over 19,000 FTEs, accompanied by the monetization of non-core assets in alignment with creditor recovery priority.
For those whose brains have just been splintered, here's the layman's version. Over breakfast, Vivian learns exactly what Edward does for a living. This is the scene where private equity gets explained, Pretty Woman style.
What do you do, Edward?
I buy companies.
What kind of companies?
I buy companies that are in financial difficulty.
So you don't actually have $1 billion.
No, I get some of it from banks, investors. It's not an easy thing to do.
And you don't make anything, and you don't build anything.
No.
You sell them.
Well, I don't sell the whole company. I break it up into pieces, and then I sell that off. It's worth more than the whole.
So it's sort of like stealing cars and selling them for the parts, right?
Yeah, sort of, but legal.
But in this case, Joann wasn't in trouble when they bought her. Leonard Green put her in trouble. The leveraged buyout created the debt that would later put her under. If you want a full breakdown of how that works, Legia Miller has an excellent video on her channel about Joann Fabrics and private equity. It's worth your time. Leonard Green and Partners bought Joann in 2011 using a leveraged buyout, which means they used Joann's own assets as collateral to take on massive debt. The store didn't start out in trouble, but once the debt was strapped on, it left very little for investing in growth or keeping the shelves stocked. Even the pandemic craft boom couldn't offset the interest payments. And by early 2024, Joann announced all 800 stores would close, laying off nearly 19,000 employees. That's not just a market downturn, that's the weight of a deal-crushing brand. And that's reality. But if private equity could sing their pitch, I think it might sound a little more like Harold Hill in The Music Man. In The Music Man, Harold Hill is a charming con man who convinces an entire small town that they've got a crisis only he can fix. He whips them into a panic over moral decay of a new pool table, then sells them instruments and uniforms for a boys band that doesn't actually really exist. Imagine private equity sauntering into town with a straw hat and a glib in his step. Imagine private equity convincing businesses that every destructive move is actually for their good. Harold Hill arrives in town claiming to help the community. Private equity buys into a business claiming to help the brand. Harold Hill sells a dream. A boys' marching band will raise civic pride. Private equity sells a dream. New capital and strategic vision will boost market standing. Harold Hill has no actual music experience. Private equity, often no operational expertise in the acquired industry. Harold Hill gets town folk to pay upfront for instruments and uniforms. Private equity uses the company's own assets to finance the purchase, aka leveraged buyout. Harold Hill disappears with the money before the band plays a note. Private equity extracts value quickly. Asset sales, debt reconstructuring. Post-Alien Shepherdess here in the magical world of the editing room. The word I'm trying to say here is restructuring. Again, the word is restructuring. Thank you. Cost cuts before exiting. Harold Hill leaves chaos, but some residents feel inspired. Private equity leaves closures, layoffs, and diminishes resources, but investors collect returns. Harold Hill sold trombones to a town that didn't know he couldn't teach music. Private equity sells growth to a company without the tools to survive the debt they bring. Same pitch, different century. You know what? I completely lost track. This is supposed to be some sort of funeral memorial service or something. For the bereaved and the not so bereaved, there's more to say about Joann and Just Like That. But endings aren't always the end. I was fortunate to bring a piece of Joann home with me. Quite a few pieces, actually. And in the next video, we'll clean them up and give them new life and see how they fit into my space at home.